Hey, producer Paul here, and this is part two of a recent presentation Pat gave at a mastermind entitled How to Win Everything in 2026. Make sure you listen to last week's episode, part one, and get more information on how you can start building wealth in your gym business at wealthygymowners.com.
What's the model that wins next? I'm going to tell you my opinions, and I will say this with a hint of humility, but I mean, I've told people a lot of stuff was coming 5 years before it came, and they were slow to the party, and I've got the receipts. I can go back because I send it all out in email. So I can show you when I predicted something in 2011 that was going to happen. So I feel pretty good about what I'm going to tell you where this is headed, right? So first, the combination of boutique, so small, personal, clarity, so you are clear about who your target market is and what you do and what you want to be best in your community at, and integrated. So it's got more than just workouts. Whatever that more than just workouts looks like, you know, that's dependent on the first two, right? I think small group personal training for midlife adults, midlife probably being 40 plus. I think that is a booming market because disposable income, far less price sensitive that way, right? They've probably experienced enough things to kind of be clear about what they like and what they don't like. So they're less likely to jump around, so we're gonna have better retention. So we get to pay more, we get to work with people longer time. It's a scalable model that it's not a race to the bottom price-wise. Sports performance. I mean, the amount of money spent on youth sports in the United States was huge when I launched the sports performance franchise in 2009, and it's like 4 times as much now. There are cities that are building their entire kind of economic development plan around this, hey, let's bring people here. We're going to be sports tourism, basically. I mean, it's not ever going back. The people that sit here and say, oh, we need to get back to rec leagues or whatever else are the same people that want to get back to horse and buggy and landlines, dial-up phones, that sort of thing. It ain't coming. So understanding this and understanding that it's a more competitive landscape, that the worst kid, like I played professional baseball. The worst kid on our team is better than I was at this age, and it's not even close. Because they've got so many more reps, so much more development. I mean, yesterday when we were at the baseball facility, they did a velocity thing. I mean, our younger kid just turned 15, and he threw 83. Like 83 is a high school junior was going to get you Division I looks when I was coming out of high school. He weighs 140 pounds. Like, it's so much further along now. So sports performance, kids, and if you want to talk about recession resistant, tariff resistant, whatever, people are always going to spend money on their kids. Always. They'll rationalize not going to the gym themselves because it's hard work for them anyway. But they're going to spend money on their kids. Nobody stopped buying $400 baseball bats when the tariffs came. All right, niche, wherever you're from, say it however you feel like. Or boutique, right? Dominate a small market, don't dabble. Like here, we've got this neat community. I think this, like Norton Commons is really neat. When Todd comes back, Todd's been here for 14 years. He said, I knew he'd been here almost since its inception. I mean, tons of little kind of neat businesses, but to win, you better be different, right? And there are opportunities. I would rather have what Doug is doing with, hey, we're going to put these little 1,500 square foot small group personal training gyms out there, and we're just going to put one, and this neighborhood and the next 20, 30 minutes away and that sort of thing, then say, the first facility we were at yesterday is probably 18,000-ish square feet. And I said, well, you got to be a destination. You got to pull a lot of people to one spot to pull that off, right? So dominate a small market. In sports, you can get away with a little bit bigger footprint for this sort of thing because people will travel more for that. But odds are, like, you're not driving by, for adult fitness, you're not driving by 6 competitors to get to, like, your small group personal training gym if they're at all similar, right? Integrating wellness or other complementary solutions. And again, complementary can be the same thing I just talked about with sports performance. Like, one-stop shop. I mean, I would tell you that if you are training athletes now and you're not talking to them about how recruiting has changed, how NIL has changed. I mean, I just saw a good friend of mine, he just took over running the NIL division for Athletes First, which is like one of the biggest agencies for like NFL players in the world. They just signed a kid that's in like a grade older than Alex to an NIL deal, like is their representative from our high school. Like, I mean, so if you're not educating people on this and how this matters for them, it's kind of a missed opportunity, right? Because they're going to be wrong otherwise if they don't have somebody who's on the front end of it. And it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of where your ecosystem for all this stuff thrives, like small group, high service, specialized offerings. I also think that if we're trying to win 2026 and beyond, again, I'm going to talk about, like, when I first got into this, there weren't really any owners who weren't the operators. Frankly, like 1 out of 100 people who did personal training understood business beyond, like, nailing flyers to telephone poles and taking cash per session. Like, it's evolved a lot, and kudos to you guys for figuring it out. But the days, if you're the person who's like, hey, we're going to deal with word of mouth and we're going to be the destination, we're going to be better than what everybody else is. And so they're just going to come to us, and I'm not going to know my numbers, and I'm not a business person, whatever else. Well, you will soon be a bankrupt person, because it's just the standard is higher now, right? And the standard's only going to keep getting higher. No different than what I just said about baseball players now versus baseball players when I was growing up. The standard is going to keep going. So, and I know I'm saying this to people who are in a room for business, so I get that you value that and you're on the right track, but there's enough competition where they're going to err on that side and not be very good at the service side, that you're going to have to be better, especially if you're competing against people with deep pockets, big budgets. So coach to owner. That doesn't mean instead of coach, like if you still want to coach, again, I referenced Eric Cressy, he's still on the floor some. Not as much as he was by any stretch, but he's still on the floor some. So you can still coach. But if it's at the expense of you being an owner, like at best you're going to struggle. So an easy line that I put down to think about is the best coaches will not win, the best owners will. And again, I'm not saying that to diminish the coaches. It's just you will not win by being a coach alone. I don't care what you were doing in 2015. I don't care what you were doing in 2020. As the competition gets better, you're not gonna do it. All right, so marketing. I'm plowing through it. I'm trying here. Marketing is an ecosystem. A lot of people, like, look, I've known Russell Brunson for a long time, if you're familiar with him, from all his books and ClickFunnels and all that stuff. This idea of you're one funnel away, it was a great tagline. It's a lie. There is no singular funnel that's going to move people through decision making. That's not how people buy. But I mean, it sounds good, right? Like, and his idea, if you've ever read any, how many of you have ever read any of his books? Like, they're all little stick figures and stuff, right? Why? Because he wants you to make it feel simple. Like, that's the idea. He wants, this is simple, buy ClickFunnels. It's not simple. It is not. It's an ecosystem. That's how people make decisions. Even if you refer me to something, I'm going to get out my phone and I'm going to look at the reviews. It's not this straight line anymore where you can attribute everything directly. I mean, when I owned a gym in Owensboro, I really laughed because we were on this Highway 54. And people, I'd be like, oh, how did you find out about us? Oh, I saw your billboard blank. I'm like, we don't have a billboard blank, right? But they saw a billboard, and so they're just trying to remember. That's people, you want them to be like, if this is like the nucleus of, like your business is that, then there's this ecosystem around it. We're trying to pull people into that. Has a little bit of a tractor beam effect is what we're hoping for here, right? But we need them to be in this bigger ecosystem, and we need to be visible. Local marketing, ads, social media, referral stuff, all of it. Because nobody is a straight line sale. Nobody. Everybody can, I mean, they've got a better research tool. Like you could go to a public library when I was growing up and work like crazy, Dewey Decimal Systems, all that fun stuff, right? Work like crazy to research something, and you couldn't do 1/10 of the research you can do by pulling out your phone and looking something up now. So that's what you're going to do. Like, you're going to look at this. And then a lot of times, because you looked at one thing, you're going to get retargeted with another thing, right? So it is our job to be kind of omnipresent. And I know that can feel daunting. It's not as daunting as it feels. It's just people are going to do their homework. And honestly, you want them to. I know I want them to. I don't want a desperation buyer who's not done any research, who's going to be out the door as quickly as they came in the door. I want somebody who's choosing us because we're their best option. I've said it many times over. I don't want to be your first business coach, or I don't really care about being your first. I want to be your last. Right?
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. In other words,
See? It does make perfect sense. Well, I know. She agreed. So, like, we're trying to bring people to us where they can have multiple touch points, right? They can see some video, they can read an email, they can see an ad, they can look at a review, they can hopefully connect with a client. And if we do that, there's familiarity, there's trust, there's belief. Because we're not selling a one-time transaction, we're selling come see me 3 times a week. So there has to be a higher bar for trust there, right? Doug's wearing a wonderful shirt that says, just get them through the door, which is something that, I have believed in since I was a college baseball coach. If I could get somebody to campus, we converted 88% of those people to become players if we made an offer. So I've believed in this since the late 90s, maybe before a few of the people in the program were born. Like, I buy into it like crazy. But part of that is just, what better, like, you kind of have a captive audience if they come through the door, right? Like, you have their attention, a much higher percentage of their attention than if they're scrolling. So sure, we want them through the door, but we want anything that we're putting out to be the experience before the experience. One of the things I love about Disney is the queue, right? If you go to an amusement park, and there's some great amusement parks, right? Like, we go to a variety of amusement parks, Kings Island, Cedar Point, they're like great, like adrenaline-driven rides and all that stuff, but the queue is basically just a line that you're sweaty and bored in. At Disney, the queue is part of the experience, right? It's part of the storytelling. That's what we want anything outside of that nucleus in our ecosystem to be. Like people can figure out, is this for me? Am I going to fit in there? Is that coach going to be the kind of coach I'm looking for? And in some cases, is that coach going to be different enough from the one that I didn't like? So I think that is a big piece of this, right? We're not pushing people through a funnel or something. We're pulling them to us and inviting them into our world, right? And it's one step at a time a lot. And sometimes it's one step forward, one step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because one thing that it's important that we all remember, people are going to default to their norm, right? Always. People, like their default setting is their comfort zone. So, and that's everybody. That's not our clients, that's us. If you are not consistent with scheduling emails, the odds are really favorable that you're not going to be consistent next week with scheduling emails unless something changes, right? So we have to understand that anything that we're doing, we're trying to get somebody to change how they operate as a human being, and that's hard. So we have to be the consistent ones to help them get consistent. Don't expect somebody to become consistent with you being erratic or inconsistent. And it's like, so with follow-up and relationships, I think that's a big piece of this. In fact, I would say independent gym owners, your biggest advantage, aside from what happened, like outside your 4 walls, would be relationship marketing and follow-up. Most businesses stop very quickly with any of their follow-up. They basically think that, oh, this person's not serious, they're not committed, they're not interested, I'm on to the next thing. Because they're focused on what they want, right? We're focused as business owners in general, not necessarily you, on, I put this thing out, people should like it, they should like me. They should want to come in. We got to look at it through their lens, like, okay, I'm scrolling through social media, that was interesting, I clicked on it, now I'm scrolling again, or I left the tab open, now I'm 3 tabs in, and now I'm watching something on Netflix, and now I got to go pick up my kid. So we're the ones who have to stay in front of them because we're asking them to do something different. This is what we do all the time. We're asking you to change. The responsibility falls to us. And if we're not going to be consistent, then if they change, it ain't going to be with us. So follow up, ideally more than 7 to 10 times, preferably in the 20s. Fred, I believe, has like an 80-part follow-up sequence. So, and if that sounds like a lot to you, good, because change is hard. Getting somebody to get out of their comfort zone is hard. And I had this conversation on a Zoom yesterday. Somebody had asked, like, well, a few people have replied back, and they don't like that I follow up so much, and whatever. Good. They weren't changing anyway, because the only reason they're seeing all of them is because they didn't do anything. They would have been taken out of the sequence if they would have done something. So they're choosing to stay stuck. And if they stay stuck, they're not your client. Totally fine. You can't spend all your life worrying about people who are not your client. I mean, there are like 7.8 billion people on this planet. Almost all of them are never going to be your client. And my guess is you're not too worried about most of them. Just because somebody lives a few miles away from you doesn't make them somebody you should be worried about if they're not going to be your client too. You can worry about them for other reasons. Maybe their kid goes to school with your kid or something like that. But when it comes to business, our job is to get X number of people through the door. And most businesses in our industry can do just fine with 150 people through the door. There are over 2,000 people just in this Norton Commons neighborhood. You need like 150 of them. That means 1,850 of them are largely irrelevant when it comes to your business. Okay? And now we want them, we're going to invite them, but if they don't we're not going to change how we operate to get those 150 people. We're going to keep following up because I'm asking you to do something hard. I'm asking you to do something different. I mean, I made a post yesterday nudging people, not gently, to come to live events because historically the people who come to live events outperform the people who don't. I need to do a better job collecting data on it, but if I were just guessing, I would say by 4-1. Because in some ways, it's just simply saying, this is what I prioritize. Even if you didn't get as much out of this as I hope you get out of this, and I did some math showing you how easy it is to get a positive ROI on something like this, the fact that you're saying, this is what I prioritize in my business, it's likely not in a vacuum. This is not the only place you prioritize it, right? So those people historically do a lot better than the people who say, well, I can never leave. That's never true. That is never true. Because if you had an emergency, you'd leave. So yes, you would be able to get out if there's an emergency. So if you want to do it, if it's a priority, you figure it out. All right, so Doug's going to talk more about the marketing piece of this, but we need a two-part, like in general, we need a two-part system, right? We need something we can automate and outsource, or automate or outsource, one or the other, right? Like the tech piece of this, and sometimes that's just prompts to get people to reply, then we pick it up as a human, right? And then we have the on-stage connection, the stuff where we're personally involved. So we can send an automated email sequence, but when they reply, we pick it up as a human, right? We can send automated text. They reply, we don't just send back AI texts. Right? We pick it up from there. So we need two parts, and then we want this kind of ecosystem that has everything from text to videos to local relationships to handwritten notes. And the local relationship stuff is, I mean, I'll give you the most simplistic example I can give you. So as the last meeting was ending, Todd introduced me to a guy who was here that he has tried to make an introduction for 3 different times via email that just kind of died on the vine. And I loosely knew of who this person was. And this was more for this guy's benefit than mine. He wants to start like a baseball thing. And Todd was like, well, Pat can help. Like not a baseball business, like a baseball team. So it's not like a business gain for me. But I'd reply, and then he just wouldn't follow up. Well, in 5 minutes, I know where he lives, I know what his background is, I know what he's about, I know what he's trying to do, what age group he's working with. Like, I think the first time somebody mentioned, like Todd mentioned this to me in an introduction was 8 months ago. So I covered a whole lot more ground in 5 minutes than I did in 8 months. So if we can do the personal thing, there's a whole lot more to gain. All right, so our game plan to win. We want to clarify what we do. We want one audience where we want to be the default best solution for in our respective market. And what's great is the audience, it's not like Kim needs to be like the default person for the people in Chicago, right? It's like there's a geographic proximity. I talked a lot about convenience. For most gyms, if they're not training athletes, that's a 3 to 5 mile radius at most. Training athletes, we can go a little wider because like you guys and you guys both have a bit of a basketball thing, right? So I'll go further for a specialist. So I think you need to redefine your offer and figure out how are we more than just fitness training? How are we more than just workouts? I mean, you take people to meets and things like that. Like there's a connectedness that they're not going to get that going to somewhere else. They're definitely not getting that somewhere else, right? So we want to integrate differentiators. We want to build a marketing ecosystem. We've got to be okay systemizing and delegating. If you've put it off, if you kick the can down the road, now's the time. Because the longer you wait, the less it becomes an advantage and the more it becomes just like table stakes. We've got to be able to say, I'm going to do my $75 an hour tasks and hand off my $15 an hour tasks, and I've got to make sure I do more of the 75s to keep funding the 15s, right? Hey, do-it-yourselfers are fine. I get it. I love it. I'm married to somebody who's been that person a lot. But there's a lot of, like, as a business owner, we can't just say, well, I want to do it because it's at the expense of something else that's better for the business. Doesn't mean that you can't be excited about learning things and figuring things out. It's just if you're spending time on that, then there's a whole lot of other stuff that you're not doing. Like Fred and I are launching a new book that's a lead magnet for something we're going to do. I was formatting my own ebooks in like 2007. So I'm not unfamiliar with this, but I'm a whole lot better if somebody else formats this one, and it's going to turn out better. So it's not like I can't do it. It's just it's not the right move for me. And then be more human. We have people who come into our ecosystem who get caught up in these trends, or they'll hire an agency and they'll say, oh, just have this AI system to follow up for you and everything else. And I'm like, so we're selling a human service where they're going to meet with a human 3 days a week, but we don't really want to introduce them to a human to attract them to the service, huh? Seems smart. So be more human. Tell stories. Let people feel connected to you, right? A lot of times telling our story is like our best thing. You know, so Holly, I don't know if any of you have seen Holly's posts about her 18th anniversary of when she launched her online program, the Fit Yummy Mummy, which she'd been training, coaching in our training business, ran the nutrition coaching program too, launched that. At that time, it was kind of early in the online fitness space, right? But there were definitely a lot of interesting products out there that were making money, that were work-at-home type of products or work-out-at-home type of products. But they were all guys, and they were all guys that were like late 20s, at oldest, like early 30s. And so they didn't really get the whole busy mom of young kids thing or whatever else. And so her differentiator in the beginning was just kind of telling her story and being connected to somebody, making them feel like, okay, this is how you can feel connected to me, because frankly, they don't get you. They don't have any kids. I mean, the only thing they know about this is maybe what their mom was doing when they were a kid. Like, that's it. Like, they don't understand your life at all. I do. I'm empathetic. And it went from brand new to the top selling fitness for moms product on the internet within like a year. And now obviously it's a much more crowded landscape now or whatever else. But what's cool is that's on the internet. You're a local business. You can still tell those same stories and differentiate yourself and be unique in your local market and pretty quickly become the premier, preeminent solution for some target market. All right, so of course I had to use like Disney in my last thing here, but I was like, I mean, your competitive moat. Like, I'm a big fan of this concept of a moat. Like, there's something, you know, I started reading Warren Buffett. He talked about wanting to invest in businesses that had a moat, right? A competitive differentiator that wasn't easily copied. Like, somebody couldn't catch up as easy. For us, like I talked about, like if you think your differentiator is your equipment, if I got a credit card, then that's not a differentiator for very long, right? So be the local specialist with national caliber level system, franchise quality systems, but a Disney level experience. If you can do that, and you can combine personal with having the process piece of what you're doing, I mean, you're going to do great in 2026 and you'll jump ahead of a lot of people, but you also will be durable enough that you're going to last. Because there are a lot of people in this industry, like if you make it 10 years in this industry, you are definitely like a unicorn, right? If you make it 15 or 20, you're really, really rare. And that doesn't mean you guys aren't going to do great doing it, but it's just most people are going to miss. They're going to be all personal, no process. Or they're going to be corporate and try to be all process and no personal. You mesh those two things together, you'll easily jump to the front of your market.